Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For Checking TV. I'm your host, Doug Glackey. Alongside me are my co-hosts, Scotty Porterfield and Peyton Trollinger. And tonight we are joined by a special guest, Hunter Hodies of Locked On Penguins. Hunter, how we doing, buddy?
What's up, man? I just got off work a few minutes ago. My PC is calling my name probably after this because this thing is a monstrous rig, and I was probably playing on it too much last night. But yeah, excited to talk Penguins with you. I also have to record my episode after this, so it's kind of like a little home and home kind of thing. So
There
which
you
I
go.
love.
There you go. Did you start running Halo on it yet?
Not yet. I need to download it.
You have to. You have to. Like I told you last night, I'm ready to just run and drop whatever it is on a gaming PC just to play Halo because I'm not buying an Xbox. So
Yeah, this thing runs any game to. I probably got. I was playing a bunch of competitive. Well, I was playing a little Fortnite with a couple of friends last night. I got 300 frames, so that thing is.
there you go.
It's beautiful.
That's good stuff. All right, guys. So didn't record last week, but it gave us an opportunity to, just like watch some hockey, do whatever we got to do. And over the past week, I would like to confirm the Pittsburgh Penguins are not dead. And neither is Tristan Jarry for that matter. They played that Canada trip was unbelievable. And I'm sure we'll touch deeper into this, but the last 15 minutes of the Winnipeg game last night was something I have not seen them do probably since the 17 Cup run. They just tightened everything up, played really well. Heinen got a nice little dirty area goal there. Almost Chris Kunitz-esque, if you will. And they just put on an absolute clinic in terms of holding a 1-goal lead late in the game. Hunter, we'll start with you, man. What do you think's changed since Sid came back? Because, there was a time where everybody thought, okay, this team may not have it this year. And now we're back and we're rolling.
Yeah, everyone's back in, their usual roles. I mean, I know Gino's not there just yet, but for the most part, everyone's back playing their actual roles. They actually had the courage to scratch Brian Boyle. I didn't know if Sullivan was going to do that because, he's been more lenient with some veteran players, but it made a lot of sense, right? Just because he's basically a PK specialist at this point in his career, decent defensively, but he's not going to give you an offensive punch. That's why Dominic Simone came in. But they've really just gotten back to the basics with how they were playing at the early portions of the season when Sid was out, and it's their commitment to team defense. Those 3 games, especially the one against Toronto as well. A lot of times you'll see the Penguins kind of sit back, they turtle, they let the opposition get a lot of shots on goal, they let them get to the high danger areas, and then, especially earlier this year, they're giving up leads with 3 minutes left. Heck, they let Minnesota score 2 6-on-5 goals with 2 minutes left. Ever since then, I think they really tightened it up. I think on the broadcast, Bob Airy was talking about how Mike Sullivan was chewing into them in practice about that. Well, I don't think they've allowed a 6-on-5 or late period goal since then, and they've been able to defend hard and keep pushing play when they take a lead. I think that's one of the biggest things I've noticed overall is that when they take a lead into the third period, or when they score that goal last night with Danton Heinen, they're continuing to push for the kill. Other Penguins teams, again, they would sit back, not play team defense, but they suffocated the neutral zone. They got back to that 1-2-2 neutral zone trap that they love to run. And outside of that Kyle Connor breakaway that he kind of flubbed, I don't think Winnipeg had a decent scoring chance the rest of that period.
Yeah, I agree, and something minor that I want to add real quick is the last 2 games of this road trip, Brian Dumoulin looked like himself for the most part. Like there really wasn't a lot concerning with him. I think, and Hunter, I think you and I have talked about this. The Toronto game was probably his best game of the year. And if they're able to get him back to some form of normalcy for what Brian Dumoulin does and what he brings to the table, that's only going to make their chances of righting this ship that much better. Um, and honestly, man, like not enough can be said about Tristan Jari. I said it to Peyton last night. I said like I had kind of like I had like a holy crap moment where I looked and I didn't know that Tristan Jari had a 930 save percentage to start the year. Like that's for him, that's pretty damn good. Like that's good stuff.
6 goals saved above expected, top 10 on per money puck, by the way, too.
That's huge, man. Like that's massive. Not enough can be said about him. Honestly, I'm to a point now where I trust him a lot. You can run with him, but something to talk about a little later is probably maybe getting him some help, maybe get him a more reliable backup to prevent potential burnout down the stretch, because the last thing we want is for him to pull like a Frederick Anderson or like a early 2010s Marc-Andre Fleury where he's playing like 55, 60 games a year. And then he goes into the month of April and he's just kind of dead.
Isn't it crazy to think like maybe like not even 3 months or 2 or 3 months ago, we were talking about, what we could get in a trade for Tristan Jari. Like, isn't it crazy how fast things have changed? He went from being, a guy that was almost run out of town to now easily being the best player on your team. Because that's honestly what he's become. The pressure was all on him this year. He had it all laid out in front of him. He knew what he had to do, and he is more than rose to the occasion. Like you said, you got the 930 save percentage. He's absolutely dominated this year. And it's great to see. We saw what he was capable of doing back in 2019 whenever he went on that little stretch. He's been absolute money this year. Like you said, 930 save percentage, a little over 2 goals against average. This is what you need. You need a guy like that in the playoffs. And hopefully he continues that trend because so far this season, he's done wonders for the Penguins. And like you said now, you might want to look into that backup option because if Tristan Jari has been your best player on your team, Casey DeSmith's been your worst. And I think that's something that the Penguins need to look into if they really want to make that push. Maybe you go out and get, a reliable backup. Don't know where you're going to find that at right now. I'm sure there will be some teams that will be shopping that around sooner rather than later. But, obviously the Pens will cross that bridge when they get there. But, yeah, not enough can be said about Tristan Jari and how well he's been playing. And also, too, in our last episode, I was cooking Jake Gensel for how poor he's been playing. Man can't stop filling the net now. It's great. I love it. So, finally, he went back to his old form, and now he's starting to play like the all-star that he's capable of being. So I'm glad that he's finally turning it on now, too. It seems like all the pieces are starting to come together here. So the key now is for the Penguins just being consistent with it.
Yeah, I want to add something real quick. Jake needs to stop running goalies. He needs to stop doing the Chris Kreider thing, stop running the goalies.
Really aggressive.
He literally is acting like Chris Kreider lately, and it's just like he's going to pull someone's going to like get mad or a fan base is just like Carey Price, like the Montreal Canadiens fan base with Carey Price, and it's not going to end well.
Yeah, and it's
happen low key. Like he's going to run like Samsonov or Vanacek or someone like that, and Tom Wilson's going to absolutely just suplex on the ice again. It's going to be like the Panarin situation all over again. I could totally see that happening. So pump the brakes, Jake, please. For your own
safety. Just do it for your own safety and do it for my own sanity. I want to have like a stroke because you're running goalies, dude. Peyton, go ahead.
So kind of what I was going to say about the whole Sidney Crosby returning back, it's like obviously not everyone's back healthy, but it's almost a sense of like normality again. Like they feel better whenever Crosby's actually in the locker room, he's getting dressed. And, I'm sure, Crosby obviously has the confidence in Tristan Jari, but I think Jari seeing Crosby out on the ice is actually giving him more confidence. I mean, we saw, Jari's playing at the top of the crease. He's really confident in his play. He goes for it. He makes the save quite easily. So, it's really just about the captain. And like I said, Crosby coming back is huge for the Pens. Now we just got to wait on Malkin and the rest of them to get healthy. But,
I'm telling you, the moment that the big guy comes back, man, I'm going to be a very happy camper because, and Hunter, I mean, you can interject on this. I think I've been seeing more of he's going to be back before Christmas type deal. Is that true?
The organization. I mean, I've talked to a couple reporters, and they seem to think that that may be the case. He's been skating a lot. The next step is for him to join the team in any practice capacity, which that should be coming. If he wants to return before Christmas, that should be like in the next week or something, I would have to
Right.
think. I mean, they have Vancouver tomorrow. They go to Long Island to the Islanders' new arena. What is the UBS? What arena? I don't even know what it's called.
Mhm.
And then they have Montreal, and then I believe they go on that monstrous Canadian road, a Western Canadian road trip. And I think they play Seattle in there. They play Washington at the end. I believe it's like a 5-game road trip. So I would have to think that Gino goes on that trip. If I'm just spitballing, but I would have to think so.
Yeah, probably not even to play, but probably just to go on that road trip, just to like be around the guys again and like start taking contact and things of that nature. But let's talk about this. Probably the most underrated player on their roster this year, probably their best forward, Evan Rodriguez. He has been an absolute monster to start the year. I feel like we always find one of these guys every single year. You know, last year was Freddie Gaudreau. This year it's Evan Rodriguez. And I think we're to a point now where it's not entirely insane to say that Evan Rodriguez should stay in a top 6 winger role whenever Malkin comes back. I think having Rodriguez's defensive abilities and his playmaking prowess on a line with Malkin and Kasperi Kapanen could have potential to make a deadly line, a deadly second line. And, you know, given Zucker and Jeff Carter those more favorable matchups, man, like that might just be what you need to get the whole thing cooking. You know, that might be the last spice that needs to go into this gumbo of making this team a cup contender.
Yeah, Rodriguez has been disgusting this year. I saw there was a shift, I think, in the third period where he was knifing through the whole Winnipeg Jets defense or something. I was like, is that Evgeny Malkin out there or something like that? Because I was just really confused watching him play. Also, I will say this, Doug, I was reading Josh Yohe's 10 post-game thoughts. He finally has the thought of putting Danton Heinen in the top 6 on Evgeny Malkin's line when he comes back. So there's your idea coming to potential for fruition. Right there with and he put Kapanen right there as well. So I think that we've been talking about that a lot. But yeah, as for Rodriguez, he really has been awesome this year. I remember when so many people kind of questioned that signing during the offseason just because he was kind of okay last year. It didn't really matter if he was going to be in the lineup or Zohorna or Gaudreau, but he's worked out better than Freddie, I think, this year. You know, I think they made the right choice in signing Rodriguez and letting Freddie walk because he got like a 2-year deal. I just don't think Ron wanted to do that. But in terms of bottom 6 production, I mean, what more could you want? If he's one of their best players in expected goals, shot attempts, chances for any line that he touches, he strikes gold. So he's just been awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the idea of Heinen playing up there too. You know, that's something I've wanted for a little bit now, but I mean, guys, they have options. They have good options whenever they come back because, you know, your first and your fourth lines are going to be concrete. I wouldn't expect those to be broken up unless it's like a nuclear scenario. And, you know, that second and third line, like you can experiment with a lot of stuff. I mean, hell, they could put, you know, not saying this is a great idea, but they could put Evan Rodriguez at the third line center spot and let Jeff Carter play some wing, you know, somewhere in that top 9. You know, but man, I can't wait for Malkin to get back because I really think that this team's going to take off once he gets back. And, you know, I mean, this knee injury, you know, I feel like it's the same thing with Sid dealing with his wrist. Like, I feel like it's been holding Gino back for a little bit now. And, you know, maybe him with this new knee, he'll be able to just take flight and just be his old self for the last couple years of his career. That would be ideal. What do you guys think? All right. Moving on. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Penguins potentially being sold to the Fenway Sports Group. This is a report that came out last week. I think it's in the final details, and I think this is probably the best case scenario for the Penguins. I know a lot of people were panicking and freaking out whenever it first came to be, but keeping Mario there in some capacity is massive. And we're talking about a Fenway Sports Group that is, I mean, guys, they did a fantastic job with the Red Sox, and Liverpool's one of the better teams in European soccer. And, there's also a rumor that maybe not yet, but at some point the Fenway Sports Group may end up merging with or buying out Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. So add those four more greatly ran, or those three more incredibly run organizations to the mix, and you're really cooking with gas there.
Yeah, I mean, some people were just like worried that the team was going to be moved or something. I'm like, they have a lease until 2040 at PPG Paints Arena. They have one of the best fan bases in hockey. I will always say, if anyone tries to tell any of you, and this goes for the listeners as well, that Penguins almost moved due to a lack of fan support, you have my moral obligation to punch them in the face, because that's just not even true. It was all Howard Baldwin being a cheap little idiot. There's nothing, they're not going to move. They're going to keep them there forever. One thing I've read about this ownership group, and I've been told this by a couple of people who are fans of the teams that they own, especially a couple Liverpool fans, they're very invested in analytics. I think both teams have very big analytic staffs, and that's sometimes how they make their decisions. Look at the Mookie Betts situation with the Red Sox. They, I think, had a certain price for him. They traded him. He got even more than what he was asking for in Boston. He went to LA, but the Red Sox did pretty fine with that trade, considering that they're still a really good team. But I still think this is fine. This is where I think you're going to see a lot of sports teams go to. It's these big ownership conglomerates that are just going to gobble up teams that are family owned. I was listening to the 32 Thoughts podcast, and this is the first one in Pittsburgh that's not going to be like a family owned team anymore. I know the Pirates are owned by Bob Nutting. If you want to call him a family owner, even though all that stuff that goes on with the Pirates, then okay. But the Steelers are owned by the Rooney family. The Penguins have been owned by Mario and Ron Burkle for the last 20 years. It's not been like a conglomerate. And I really think you're going to start to see these, just a lot more groups just buy NHL teams. I think they may try to dive into the NBA. And I think the number that's been thrown around out there is $900 million for what the team is going to sell for. So we'll see.
The thing that I'm wondering about is, obviously, like we said, they kept around Mario for whatever reason. How much of an influence now does ownership have on the moves that are made by Ron Hextall and company? That's the biggest thing I'm wondering, because we talked about in the past about how, Jim Rutherford had tried to shop around either Evgeny Malkin or Chris Letang, and Mario stepped in and said, no, you're not getting rid of these guys. So now that Mario isn't exactly, head honcho anymore, what does that mean for the Penguins? Like if Ron Hextall let's just, I'm just throwing out hypotheticals here, obviously, but let's say Ron Hextall ever wanted to look into moving or not bringing back a Chris Letang or an Evgeny Malkin, would the ownership group, step in and say something, or would they just let let him manage it? That's the thing that I've been wondering about, because that was always the knock on I think with Mario, was like, like I've said in past episodes, I've stressed it so much how like Mario's all about the legacies. He's all about guys starting in Pittsburgh and finishing there. And I think that was, one of the main reasons why guys like Letang and Malkin have stuck around as long as they have. So, what do we think that like this ownership group is going to kind of be the same way, or is it just going to be like, okay, do what you want to do when it comes to, the management of the players?
Hunter, go ahead.
ahead.
I think this is a you question.
I mean, it's tough because I feel like Mario's still going to be around on the hockey side. He's not going away fully. He's mainly just going to be sipping a glass of wine every night from his house, wherever he lives in Pittsburgh. But I still think he'll have enough authority where he can go to the main owner of the Fenway Sports Group or just the ownership group as a whole and say, hey, I don't want to make this, I don't want you all to make the same mistake I did way back when or what the team made way back when with Yager leaving, because that would be like a comparison. What's the word I'm looking for here? It's just that kind of magnitude of a move, I think. If one of those two, especially Evgeny Malkin, does not come back after the season, all these players are going to be up in the rafters whenever they retire. But I still think Mario will have that authority. I know Fenway Sports Group, they do go based off analytics a lot with some of their decisions, or most of them. But with how, especially Chris Letang has played this year, they can look at whatever numbers they want. I'm sure they would sign him to a lower AAV. I mean, he's not going to get an 8 or 9 per year, but we'll see how Malkin plays when he comes back. I'm sure he'll be fine. But again, overall, I still think he'll have that kind of authority, where he can be like, I've watched these guys for almost 2 decades now. I want them to finish their careers here, and I hope you all do as well. And he's always believed in these 3 coming in together and then walking out together. So I think that's I'm hoping he'll be able to talk to the ownership group about that.
Yeah, and I think this is just my opinion, but if it comes down to it, I could totally see Sid storming into an office like LeBron James and just doing whatever the hell needs to be done. But I'm not really worried about like these extensions right now because I think Letang, you get him to like a 5.5 to a 6, and then maybe Gino a $6 to $6.5 million cap hit on a deal. And not only does that keep your guys there, that also gives you a little bit of money to play around with, makes it interesting. Maybe you're able to extend to Brian Ross at that point, who knows? But beyond that, man, I'm very excited about the analytical side of it. I think that, using analytics for like potential hires or potential hockey off positions are way better. And this is no knock on Mario, but like it's way better than like Mario just hiring people he knows, because like, yeah, it's worked out. It got them several Stanley Cups, but it's also put the teams in small states of turmoil for small periods of time, like, let's be honest, this team hasn't been the same since probably about 2018. And similar to how, probably from like 2013 to 2015, when they were under Ray Shero, they were exceptionally mediocre in terms of on ice performance and playoff performance. So, I'm excited for them to potentially bring in some analytics guys and use that to their advantage to get, try and keep the team as competitive as possible for a long time to come. That's how I feel about it. But moving forward, I think it would be ideal if we start talking about maybe a potential backup goalie replacement. The 2 teams I'm looking at right now for a guy would be Dallas or Vancouver, because you look at Dallas, they have Yaroslav Halak. I think that makes a whole hell of a lot of sense. And then if you're the Penguins and you see Dallas, You see Braden Holtby, you see Anton Hudobin. I think that those would also be two very viable options. But beyond that, it's so hit or miss because like, it's too early in the year and there's so much parity in the league right now to start the year where you can't really tell like who's going to sell and who's going to like be like a buyer or like a conservative buyer at the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, it's still only, what are we, a month fully in now? A little
Something
over a
like
month.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of these teams are going to wait till probably Christmas is when you'll see some panic trades or something like that. I mean, Vancouver, they still haven't even fired Jim Benning yet, so they haven't thrown in the towel. Once they do that, that's when you'll know they're up for business. Seeing Yaroslav Halak in a Penguins uniform would just be both gross and I think hilarious, just because of what happened in 2010, and then hilarious in the sense that every time if he started against the Capitals, I want him to shut them out every time and then just have them rage just because of what happened in 2010 as well. So that would just be a total chaos kind of move. Braden Holtby, I think he's kind of washed at this point. I mean, I know he played the Penguins well earlier this year, but I mean, Dallas has also struggled as well. I would prefer Khudobin, but overall, I do think they need to go out and get a backup. You can't start Jari every game, even though he's playing his butt off. Casey DeSmith has given up 4 more goals, I think, in 7 of his last 9 starts going back to last year. That's not going to cut it. So they're going to have to figure something out. Maybe if Philip Lindbergh gets healthy down in Wilkes-Barre, he can come up, but it's probably still a little early because he doesn't have a small sample. He doesn't have a large sample size yet at Wilkes-Barre. He's the starter, but he's had mainly pretty good games, but it's still early in his development. They're not going to rush him up here unless an injury happens. So overall, I would like to see them go out and get a veteran at some point. And if they can go on a nice long winning streak at some point, Ron Hextall could reward the team with, honestly, if they're healthy, I don't really know if they need to do anything, which is funny because we usually haven't said that in recent years.
I feel like this is the first time that I felt that probably since like 17 before Letang got the neck fusion. I mean, even after he got the neck fusion, you knew that they were going to get some sort of like defensive depth, but like, you're normally throwing around names, like you're throwing around big names that you think they need to go get. I mean, like last year, I feel like we were all throwing around Anthony Mantha, Ricard Raquel, guys like that, but like right now, man, I think that, I might catch flack for saying this or people might say I'm crazy, but like in terms of, talent and players that have lineup flexibility, this is probably one of the better teams the Penguins have had, in my opinion. Or at least it has the potential to be. And just to comment, what else would be hilarious? I know that Tuukka Rask is still on the table to come back to the NHL. That would be nuts because I mean, Swayman and Ullmark are doing all right. I don't know. Obviously we got to see how they do, like probably post Olympic break and all that. But like, I don't really think that him being needed in Boston is all the way there in a sense, at least for right now. But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy.
March is when he's expected back. And I think Elliot was talking about in his blog last week that, he only wants to play for Boston, but are they going to need him at that point is the question.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I mean, and my big thing is like, if they make a trade for a backup, part of me still wants them to keep Casey DeSmith in the organization and just like move out the Louis Domingue contract just to like get him out of the organizational depth chart in a sense. Because I think if you put Casey DeSmith on waivers tomorrow, he would clear. Just because like nobody's taking on a backup goalie at 1.25 million. In my opinion, at least in this. I mean, I'm not saying this is a joke, but like seriously, I don't think you're taking on a $1.25 million backup goalie in this economy, especially if you're like like a buyer or like a contender. So I think that that's definitely on the table, But beyond that, what else? Is there anything else that you guys want to touch on? Like anything else that you're thinking about?
Yeah. One thing I do want to kind of get into is what a dumpster fire Vancouver's become. I think that I really don't know where things kind of went wrong. Because I mean, I'm trying to think like a couple like usually like I forget, were they in the playoffs last year? I'm trying to remember. Were they in it last year or no?
No.
They made the bubble the year before.
And they did pretty okay in the bubble.
I went to
They took down St. Louis, I should say.
Yeah, and they pushed Vegas to Game 7. I'm pretty sure, if my memory serves me correct. But like, I mean, what's gone wrong there? What are we thinking like happened there? Because obviously one of the main problems I'd say was Pedersen showing up late to camp. I mean, we've seen in the past guys who either hold out because of for whatever reason they don't show up, they miss training camp, and then they end up they're obviously missing a step or two whenever they're playing. So we've seen it with Nylander and Mitch Marner whenever they've missed time, and now we're kind of seeing it with him. He's not really living up to. He wasn't really doing well so far. But what are we thinking about Vancouver? And just what's got to change in order for them to get back on track? Because 2 years ago they weren't a bad team, and now all of a sudden it's just like they fell off a cliff almost.
I'm looking at their depth chart right now.
You want the short answer or the long answer?
I think the short answer is the defense.
The short one is just fire Jim Benning for the most part because he stinks. I'm pretty sure Tyler Myers is still employed there, which is just ridiculous considering how bad that contract is. They actually got a decent trade with Arizona when I know they got Ekman Larson, but Connor Garland is not bad. They have a lot of really good pieces. I love Pedersen. Quinn Hughes is going to be on Team USA. I love Brock Besser. I love JT Miller. I love Bo Horvat. I already said Brock Besser. Their top six is loaded. It's just, Garland. After that, there's a whole pile of, I guess, meh. Quinn Hughes can't really do it by himself on defense. It's just, and I'll eat crow on that. I had them as a playoff team this year. I had them, I'm pretty sure, at fourth in the Pacific. I actually had the Flames missing, so I'm going to get old takes exposed on that because the Flames have been ridiculous to start this season. But yeah, there's just too many bad moves. I think throughout too many years, they were handcuffed cap wise a lot of those times just because Jim Benning decided to throw out money to Antoine Roussel, who we just traded. Brandon Sutter, I'm pretty sure, is still there. Jay Beagle, he threw out a lot of money to. I'm trying to think of all the other bad contracts that he signed, but
Louis Erickson.
Louis Erickson. I'm pretty sure that was a 7x6, if my memory serves right.
It was nuts.
He just didn't know what he was doing, and the fact that the ownership still hasn't even given him the door. That's a pretty passionate fan base out there, and when you lose all of them, you're up a creek. That's for sure, and it just stinks because they have so much high-end talent and they can't get the fringes of the roster right.
Going back
Scotty, what did you say?
Going back to what you said, Dougie, about first I said that I think Erickson and I think Beagle's in Arizona too now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Both in Arizona now, so out of one tub and into another. But now going back to kind of like what Hunter said about the OEL, we obviously all saw the video of him doing the bag skating training camp, and he looked so sluggish, and it's obviously transferred over to the season because he does not look good there whatsoever. So, Dougie, you touched on earlier about how their defense has just been pretty much anchoring them. Aside from Quinn Hughes, no one's really, holding up their end of the bargain there on the back end for them.
And I was also just another thing I want to add too. I'm looking at this roster, and Hunter said it, they're loaded. They really are. It's just the fact no one's consistently producing, I think. Besser only has like 8 points on the season. Pedersen, I think, only has 10. They're just not getting the points when they need to, and they're not getting the execution out of the players. That's why they're like towards the bottom of the Pacific. And if they are going to use that top heavy six that they have, they got to get those guys to start producing. There's no reason that Pedersen and Besser aren't leading your team. JT Miller, I think, is right now.
I mean, it's a Stanley
will say,
Cup win.
They have
Go ahead,
Thatcher
Connor.
Demko too, who's one of the best probably one of the better goalies in the league, and will be on Team USA as well. And the fact that he hasn't been able to carry them to wins, I mean, that just goes to show how bad their depth is on both offense and defense. Go ahead, Doug.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Stanley Cup winning top 9 on paper. I really don't understand how they're this bad. I mean, I'm going to read these lines off. Pearson, Horvat, Höglander, Garland, JT Miller, and then Vasily Podkolzin. And then their third line's Jason Dickinson, Elias Pettersson, and Brock Besser. And then, I mean, when they're healthy, their fourth line's Tyler Mott, Brandon Sutter, Alex Chason. Like, that's, in my opinion, on other teams, on a lot of other teams in the league, that's a pretty good third line, let alone a fourth line. It's just literally, it's the defense. I mean, it's Quinn Hughes and a bunch of it's like a bunch of replacement level defensemen. I mean, Ekman Larson, I mean, he still has name value, but like, how productive is he at this point, And Tyler Myers is horrible. Tucker Pullman, I mean, not to be that guy, but I say the same thing about Justin Hall. I'd rather have Chad Ruedel or Mark Friedman than Tucker Pullman. And then Brad Hunt is a 7th defenseman anywhere else. And Kyle Burrows is just kind of, he's there. Like, the dude just exists. I think he was in Colorado last year. He finally got into the league last year at age.
That might be the worst defensive corps I've ever seen outside Quinn Hughes.
Yeah. Like, let's be completely honest. Like, Quinn is not really good on the defensive side of the puck. Like, he's very much just a one-dimensional offensive defenseman. And that's perfectly fine, but like, you need the other pieces around him in order for that to work. I.e., look at Sam Girard in Colorado. Like, the only reason that Sam Girard works there is because they're surrounding him with so many other competent defensemen where it's not an issue. Yeah, but they're a mess for whatever reason. And, I mean, so much of it's on Jim Benning, but like, not to be that guy, but like, who are you going to replace Jim Benning with? Like, my biggest fear is they're going to fire Jim Benning and then hire Jim Rutherford, and it's going to be the same.
Oh no.
Same thing.
Oh God.
It's going to be the same thing. Dude, can you just imagine it? The lights go dark in the arena in Vancouver, and Jim Rutherford appears with Jack Johnson by his side. The team has been saved. Could you imagine?
That would be how it would go.
Dude, that was like my favorite
right
part. Oh, that was my favorite part of the end of the GMJR tenure here, was like the amount of jokes that I could make with like just like the idea of Jim Rutherford cutting wrestling promos with Jack Johnson and Eric Branson. It was just such great content. I loved it. I love it. I loved it dearly.
His biggest FU, because I'm not going to say that word on live podcast here, was just that Matheson trade, and just, saying that we lost salary, but he actually ended up gaining salary because he doesn't know math. That was the biggest FU to a team before he resigned. Like I've just never seen that before.
I mean, dude, they could still use Hornquist too. Like,
Yep, just a trade.
I mean, he'd
a
be
trade to make a trade is what that was.
like, everybody talks about, like, I feel like everybody has that one trade that they wish that they could undo. I think for everybody in this Zoom call right now, that trade is the Patrick Hornquist for Mike Matheson trade, because I mean, Peyton knows it as well as anybody because he's the one who hears it the most. Like, I think I probably complain more about Mike Matheson than I ever did Jack Johnson or Eric Goodbranson.
Yeah.
Which is truly saying something, because, it's not that he's bad. It's just like, it reminds me a lot of Justin Schultz, where, the game is there, the style's there, but like, there's no poise to it. There's no polish, like, there were very, very small minor details that I feel like Justin Schultz didn't hit on, especially after he came back from the broken leg, that caused the fallout in Pittsburgh to be the way that it was between him and the team, but outside of that, I think the team's perfectly fine. The Team Canada Olympic jerseys just dropped.
They are nice.
They are very nice.
Very clean. Very clean.
Yeah, they're very nice. I'm gonna retweet that out on the For Checking TV account here in 2 seconds, and then go from there.
Oh yeah, these are pretty sweet. I saw it right before I saw that someone involving
The
hockey.
black ones.
Oh yeah,
Those are nice.
The
You see the
black ones.
shoulder, the detail.
The red one is sharp. Ooh, man.
Mhm.
I like the red one.
That's
now, Doug, are we getting some special news in a few days regarding jerseys? Are we allowed to discuss that?
I'm just gonna say, stay tuned later in the week for a potential jersey drop that piques all of our interests.
I will say the
no,
same.
USA is dropping tomorrow too, allegedly.
What'd you say?
USA is dropping their jerseys tomorrow.
USA is dropping their jerseys tomorrow too, and I hope they are not as garbage as the last few tournaments that they've had.
Penguins wise, there should be something coming on Friday, but
Should be.
hopefully that's correct. The guy that we know, he got the New Jersey ones right, Doug. Those were correct. So he's batting a pretty good percentage right now.
They are correct, and they are horrible.
They are bad. And
They are bad.
Awful.
If the Penguins ones that are rumored, if they drop Friday, I will be spending a boatload of money on that thing.
Yeah, like I need, because like obviously I'm gonna get a Sid one, and then need that secondary player. Need that secondary player. I don't know who it's gonna be yet, but need that secondary player. But yeah, honestly, like stay tuned. They're coming. I've seen it. I'm not gonna
It's a
say I've
jersey
seen.
that everyone loves, and we need a certain someone to be in a video again.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. I just unplugged my mic by accident. But yeah, they're coming. They're gonna look great. I think the biggest thing that we're all looking forward to is, the fact that it's a jersey that we really haven't had before. It's something that we've all probably wanted, but haven't gotten it. So that's going to be exciting.
I'm very excited to, if everything that the little birdie said is right, these will be, there's no one that's going to hate them. That's for sure.
They're going to be crispy. You might have some people cry and be like, where's the Robo Penguin? But soon, eventually, my child, We just had to get Mario out of the majority stake of the ownership. I fully expect. What's up?
So what was that? What if that was the only reason he stuck around? He just didn't want to see the Robo Penguin make a comeback. So
That would be hilarious. Yeah, but I really think we'll get a Robo Penguin by the time Sid retires. Because let's be real, they're running out of ideas. They lucked out with the Stadium Series design, but beyond that, what really else is there to do? Because we know Sid's not going to do blue. So that's where we're at. But anyway, anything else that you guys want to add? No? All right, guys. Well, this was another episode of Forechecking TV. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Forechecking TV. Subscribe to us on YouTube and look for us wherever you get your podcasts from. Thank you guys. Good night and have a happy Thanksgiving.